Hello there, Sif. It's me, Royal. Don't you just love movies? No? Why not? Well, right away, with movies comes box office bombs, and even if we don't like them, they happen, and they can greatly affect movie studios, not just weep for the billionaires and millionaires. So to briefly spare you from the harsh realities of our world, let's talk about some infamous box office bombs. And when I say infamous box office bombs, I don't necessarily mean lowest grossing films or biggest box office bombs. They are included in the list. I'm just saying films that are infamous because they bombed at the box office. I'll be talking about what they're about, how they got made, their reception, and how much money they made at the box office. But I also can't guarantee that I've seen any of the movies on this list. Just here to talk about the box office. So with all of that out of the way, let's get started. So the first film on our list is one you might not have heard of. The Adventures of Pluto Nash. Directed by Ron Underwood and starring Eddie Murphy, the film follows the owner of a nightclub in space. But when he finds himself in hot water with the mafia after refusing to sell the nightclub to not Morgan, Mogain, his nightclub is set ablaze, and he has to find the person responsible for it. The film had been in development since 1983, and when Murphy was brought on and the movie finally went into production, things were not looking hot. He got into constant disagreements with Underwood and the producers, many rewrites and quote-unquote overruling Underwood. This caused production to go off schedule and over budget, resulting in the final budget of $100 million about.
Try again!
Resulting in the final budget of around $100 million. But alas, production was finally mostly finished by 2000, with all there being left to do is reshoots and post-production work. But during that time, Murphy did not promote the film, and said the only reason he took the role was for money. Sounds like he really cared about his performance and how the film would turn out. After all that, the film was finally released on August 16, 2002. And was it worth it? Hell no, absolutely not. Critics were not kind to this film at all, calling it one of the worst movies ever made. It got a Rotten Tomatoes score of 5%, an IMDb rating of 3.9, a Metacritic score of 12, a C- on Cinemascore, and if you couldn't tell by being in this video, it gets worse. Like I said, the film had a relatively modest budget of $100 million. But do you know how much it grossed? It grossed around $7.1 million worldwide. It grossed around $7.1 million worldwide, and is estimated to have lost Warner Brothers $96 million. But then again, considering the other entries on this list, that's pretty low. So not only does this film have a reputation of being one of the worst movies ever made, but you can add one of the biggest box office bombs to that. Not even the director or stars think it fondly. That's how you know it's bad. Now we move on to a movie that doesn't have nearly the same reputation as Pluto Nash, and actually has a good reason as to why it flopped. The Call of the Wild was directed by Chris Sanders and stars Harrison Ford and Terry Notary. The film was based on the novel of the same name and follows a sled dog who is taken from his home in California to the Yukon and is forced to survive his new life. He also befriends John Doherty, a frontiersman with the dog sledding team. I can't say much about the film's production, but I can say that Notary played the dog. His name is Buck, by the way. And he, presumably a lot of the other dogs, were CGI. The reason they did this was because they wanted the dogs to show a full range of emotions, and they also didn't want any real dogs from getting harmed. The latter is a pretty good explanation. But the former, though... The film was released on February 21st, 2020, and the reviews were mixed, but they skewed more on the positive side. Critics praised Ford's performance, John Farrell's score, and the tone, but they criticized the dog's CGI, calling it uncanny, which is why 20th Century. But the film's theatrical release was then cut short because of the lockdowns caused by the pandemic. It ended up grossing $111 million on a budget of around $125 to $150 million. The film ended up losing around $50 to $100 million. I guess this means that Chris Sanders won't make another live-action film for quite a while. But then again, he did make a comeback with the Wild Robots, so He'll probably be fine. Tamara was the director. It's based off the Cats musical, and it follows the same plot as the musical, except it's not confined to a stage. And you might be asking, oh, why are you talking about Cats in 2024? Well, it's not called Infamous Box Office Bomb to nothing, and there's really no better example. December 20, 2019, the film's release. It did not pan out well, and it lost a lot of money. Around 71 million, which is actually a lot lower than I expected. Okay, let's move on. Oh, the Marvels. The new lowest grossing film not only in the MCU, but also in Disney's history. Shame. Anyways, the film was directed by Nia DaCosta and stars Brie Larson, Teyonah Parris, and Iman Vellani. The film follows the trio of Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, and Miss Marvel as they try to find out why they keep switching places every time they use their powers. Again, I couldn't really find much interesting about the production, but I can say an interesting fact. This is actually the shortest MCU movie ever. Only an hour and 45 minutes. And the first movie was already a letdown for many people, so when this film was announced, you could understand that people weren't that excited. But when the film was finally released on November 10th, 2023, after a few delays, drumroll please, people actually didn't think it was that bad. Yeah, sure, people thought the script had some issues and that the villain was pretty lackluster, but they did say it was fun enough, and the performances were pretty good. But outside of that, a lot of people don't like this film. The budget's a unique one, this one. Because you know what the budget was? $274.8 million. Jesus Christ. And the film cost about $206.1 million. And it lost Disney about $237 million. If that is not a more obvious problem with having a budget that high, I don't know what is. And adding to Disney's box office slump is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. The film was directed by James Mangold, and of course, stars Harrison Ford. It follows Indy and his estranged goddaughter Helena as they try to find the anti-Chimera mechanism before it gets in the hands of Jürgen Voller, who was a Nope. The film's development dates back to 1979, when the Indiana Jones franchise was first made, and the deal was for 5 films to be made. George Lucas tried finding plot devices for the film after completing Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but the film didn't come to full fruition until 2016, when Steven Spielberg was back in the director's chair. David Cope was brought in as a writer, and that Lucas was barely involved. Other than maybe being an executive producer. But at some point, Co-op was replaced by Jonathan Kazdan. Or Kazdan. Nope, it's Kazdan. But then Co-op came back in 2019. But then Spielberg left the project in 2020 and was replaced by Mangold. But when filming finally started, an incident occurred that showed that they might have waited a bit too long. When they were rehearsing for a fight scene, Ford injured his shoulder. But it's not the end of the world, like it's such a big deal or anything, because they went back to filming when he recovered. But the film did get delayed several times. At first it was supposed to be released on July 19th of 2019, but Spielberg was too busy with Ready Player One. And then it was supposed to be released on July 10th of 2020, but then, then it was July 9th of 2021, then it was July 29th of 2022, and then, after breaking the July schedule, they finally released the film on June 30th, 2023. Did longtime fans get what they wanted? Well, they thought it was better than Crystal Skull. They definitely didn't think it was as good as the first films. But it wasn't horrible. It was serviceable enough. But the box office, oh boy, the box office. It grossed about $384 million, which actually seems pretty good at first. Until you find out what the budget was. $295 to $387 million! That cannot be the maximum! So, to the surprise of no one, the film absolutely bombed at the box office, losing Disney around $143 million. Disney really could not catch a break in 2023. And now that I have a very unsettled wardrobe change, let's talk about The Lone Ranger. The film was directed by Gore Verbinski and stars Johnny Depp and Armie Hammer. And based on the eponymous character, it follows the adventures of John Reed, aka the Lone Ranger, and Tonto as they try to bring down Butch Cavendish. When the film was first developed in 2002, Classic Media owned the rights, and the film was made by Columbia Pictures. Jonathan Mostow was attached to direct the film, but by 2005, Columbia put the film in turnaround. The Weinstein Company was interested in buying the rights, but thankfully that didn't turn out. So then Jerry Bruckheimer came in, and now Disney's producing the film. And also by the time the new writers came in and Johnny Depp was cast, there was also supposed to be some supernatural plot or subplot involving coyotes. I'm sorry. Mike Newell was attached to direct, but unfortunately he was too busy with the Prince of Persia adaptation. But they would not actually decide on a director until everyone was not busy. And until they hired a director, they would not cast the lead. But then suddenly Verbinski came and the day was saved for The Lone Ranger. But then there was budget concerns and the film was now doomed again. And then Verbinski, Depp, Hammer, and I assume a producer, I don't know, all three of them, or four, deferred 20% from their salaries, and then the film was back in development. And things were going pretty good. The cast had to be trained in horseback riding, lassoing, and gunslinging, and there was bad weather, and a crew member drowned, but other than those last two, things were going fine. But the film did have to be delayed multiple times. First it was set for December 21st of 2012, then to May 31st of 2013, and finally, July 3rd of 2013 was the date selected. And it was not worth it at all. The film received negative reviews from critics and audiences, resulting in a Rotten Tomatoes score of 31% and a Metacritic score of 37. And don't you dare think that's it, because look at the video you're watching. On a budget of around $225 to $250 million, it grossed about $260.5 million, losing Disney around $160 to $190 million. Which means that plans of a sequel and later a franchise were cancelled, and because of what's happening now, yeah, there's no chance that they're gonna do that. God damn it, again Disney? So John Carter was directed by Andrew Stanton and stars Taylor Kitsch in the title role. Based on the book A Princess of Mars, it follows Carter being transported to Mars and being a prisoner of the Tarks. And now he has to settle civil unrest within the Barsoom Kingdom. This film had been in development since 1931. The Looney Tunes animator Bob Clampett originally had the idea of making it an animated film and directly approached the author Edgar Rice Burroughs. Test footage was made with rotoscoping and it sucked. But how should I know? I haven't seen it. Fast forward 50 years later and some producers bought the rights for Disney. John McTiernan was attached to direct the film, but because the VFX at the time weren't advanced enough to make a film like that, they scrapped the project. But then Paramount and Columbia Pictures got into a bidding war for the rights, but Paramount came out victorious. Robert Rodriguez was attached to direct the project, and Mark Potasevic was attached to write it. But then Rodriguez left the Directors Guild and couldn't do the project, so he left. But now Kerry Conway is the director and Aaron Kruger is the screenwriter. I'm sorry, they were. Now Jon Favreau's directing it. But things fell apart when Paramount didn't want to renew the rights. So after that, they focused their efforts on the Star Trek films. But then with the help of Stanton, Disney bought back the rights and made him the director. And after filming and all that, the film was set to release on June 8, 2012 before being moved up a few days to March 9, 2012. And the reviews were mixed. Critics thought the visuals and performances were nice, but they were disappointed with the story. And its marketing campaign was called one of the worst marketing campaigns in movie history. So with that, the film grossed $284 million on a budget of $263 million. Wait, I forgot, the total budget is $350 million. With that, the movie lost Disney around $112 to $200 million. And they had to write the film down for $200 million. This led to Rich Ross, then head of Walt Disney, resigning, plans equals getting cancelled, and Stanton having to go back to what he's best known for. So then the rights came back to the Barreau estate, but they are still interested in making a movie franchise, so you never know. Yeah, people have already talked about this film enough, so I don't think to go into that much detail. So, Joker 2 is directed by Todd Phillips. So it's Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker and Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn, or Harleen Quinzel. The film shows the aftermath of the first movie, and it's also a musical. Everyone thought it was a steaming pile of shit. Its cinema score was the lowest for a comic book movie with a D-. The money went and DC Studios didn't want to associate themselves with that film at all. Okay, now let's move on to the last film. I put this film last because it has a pretty interesting reputation. As a bunch of you might know, this is the lowest grossing film of all time, and if you don't know, how much it grossed might be shocking. It sounded like some YouTuber with an interesting facts video. Top 5 interesting facts. This last one may shock you. The film was directed by John Penny, like Currency. It stars Katherine Heigl, Leo Grillo, and Tom Sizemore. The film follows a Casanova accountant named Grant, who, while on a business trip to Las Vegas, meets a seductress named Marissa and her ex, Joey. Grant and Marissa incapacitate Joey, with them believing that they killed him, so they plan to bury him in Zizek Road. Oh my god, he said the name of the movie! Surprise, surprise, he's still alive, and while being chased by Grant with a shovel, they end up in an abandoned mine. All I could say about the production is that it was shot entirely on location in the Mojave Desert. It lasted only 18 days, minus pickup scenes, and apparently Sizemore and his agent were arrested during production for failing multiple drug tests. Is that really all that happened on the production? The film was released on February 25th, 2006, and the results were not good. I mean, nowadays some people have said that the film wasn't really that bad, and I don't know about the perception back then, but now it has a 3.5 out of 10 on IMDb, but I could just assume people didn't really think it was good back then either. And with a budget of $1.2 million, it grossed $30. If you're asking yourself at home, how the fuck did it gross that much money? The film was only released in one cinema for like a week or so. Why, you may ask? Well, it's because Grillo didn't want the film to be released domestically until it was released in other countries. But because of how low the budget was, they had to fulfill the US release obligation. So essentially, Grillo had just let it go and not said, "Oh, I want Germany to see it first." It would have grossed a lot more than it did. I mean, obviously. So that ends another video. If you enjoyed it, I'd suggest liking the video and maybe even subscribing. And so you don't miss another upload, turn on all notifications. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye bye!